Hello and welcome to DarkHorse FM. In this video we're going to address the tactical error that says there is a gap between the defense and the midfield that the AI can exploit. I'm currently in my AC Milan save, and when I went on to create a 4-2-3-1 tactic for my AC Milan team, what happened was in game you get a notification from the sideboard or something that there is a gap between your central defenders and your central midfielders that the opposition can actually take advantage of, and sometimes this can become a problem for tactic creators. So in this video I'm going to show you how I actually went about solving that problem. The first thing you need to understand is why this gap even exists in the first place. What happens is you do not have somebody that is taking care of the space in between the central defenders and the central midfielders. That's clearly what the error tries to explain or tries to tell you. So ideally you'd notice that even if you use a deep line playmaker in this position or you use a central midfielder here on defend duty, you're still going to get that error that there is a gap between your defensive midfield or between your defenders and your central midfielders that the AI can actually, or the opposition can actually go on to exploit. So what I noticed worked for me in this game was to push my central midfielders, push them into the defensive midfield position. You'd notice that the moment that happened, the central, let's say the two defensive midfielders tend to move slightly higher up than they normally would in the DM position. What happens when I take them all the way up here? It seems pretty balanced as a 4-2-3-1, yes, but then if you move the DM into the defensive midfield role, he takes a very deep role, and then the moment you drag the other central midfielder into the DM role as well, the two central or the two defensive midfielders kind of push up into a slightly higher position. This is the way you kind of create the 4-2-3-1 DM wide. If you use two central defenders, you're going to get that error that says there is a gap in between. But then if you have your two sitters, have them play as two defensive midfielders, they're going to push slightly higher up and kind of close that gap between the defense and the midfield. From that information, I realized that the Football Manager tactic screen for FM2022 and FM2023 reacts very differently to your player positions. So another way to solve the gap problem, that's what I'm going to call it, is to have a defensive midfielder, a traditional defensive midfielder, operate in this position as your DM, and then you have two more adventurous central midfielders in this role. That kind of works. Another method that you can use to solve this problem, in the case that you noticed that initially I was using a register in this role, if you have a defensive midfielder that tends to venture far forward and is very, very adventurous, another option you can use is to apply complete wing backs, probably on support duty or on attack duty. I'll suggest you use support duty. That way the inverted wing back has the capacity to move into the DM position oftentimes, and then sit in this hole here and try to control the game from the DM position. If you do that, you will not get the error that says there is a gap in between your defensive third, or there is a gap between your defenders and your central midfielders. With a role change, you can also use fullbacks, traditional fullbacks. This is usually I suggest this for people that are in the lower leagues. Why I suggest fullbacks for the lower league is because with the fullback probably on support duty that has no instructions, you can actually ask him to cut inside. That way this fullback is going to be able to get into the DM position and try to hold this position from there and try to control the game from the DM role. He's going to essentially act like an inverted wing back. That's what the fullback on support duty, when asked to cut inside, is going to do. So if you're in the lower leagues and you do not have a designated inverted wing back per se, you can opt for a fullback on support and ask him to cut inside. This other instruction that I'm going to include is the out of possession instruction that opts for you to ask your team to push the defensive line slightly higher while using a mid block. Essentially, I don't think this is going to solve the problem completely, but if you have two central midfielders and two central defenders, and then there's like a wide gap between them, pushing the defensive line slightly higher and pushing the back line closer to the central midfielders can help close that gap. But the fact that the central midfielders are playing in the CM role means that they are going to be more adventurous and there is still going to be a gap. So to some extent, pushing the defensive line may help, but it's not going to be as effective as to when you go on to just move the DMs into the DM role and then observe how they're going to switch into a slightly higher position. So guys, I do hope this tip was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like for this video and try to get us to 1,500 subs. You can subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when new Football Manager hints and tips do come out like this on DarkHorse FM. I also go on to test out tactics for Football Manager 2023. So remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bells, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.